Hi everyone, my name is U Saraswati, currently pursuing MTech first year at IRE College, and I am excited to present my TikTok topic is about program to interface with a fingerprint sensor for biometric authentication. Introduction to fingerprint sensor biometric authentication. Biometric authentication uses unique physical traits for user verification, with fingerprints being one of the most common one. Here we can we can verify the user by using their fingerprints as a biometric authentication. Fingerprint sensor capture and analyze fingerprint patterns to identify or verify the individual. The fingerprint sensor first captures the fingerprint patterns and analyze it to identify the individual is individual is an authorized person or not. Developing an interface with this sensor involves understanding hardware communications and software integrations. When we develop an interface by using this authentication, we can understand the hardware communication and software integration. Coming to types of fingerprint sensors. Optical sensor capture fingerprint images using light requiring clear surface contact. Capacitive sensors measure electrical difference to create detailed fingerprint maps. Ultrasonic sensors transmit sound waves to capture high resolution fingerprint details, even through dirt or moisture. Hardware components required. Some of the hardware components required for biometric authentication is a compatible fingerprint sensor module, such as those based on R305 or GT 5 level C3 models. Microcontroller or single board computers like Arduino or Raspberry Pi for processing. Connecting cables, power supply, optional display or indicator LEDs for user feedback. Communication protocols and their interfaces. Common interfaces used in these protocols are UART, USB, SPI, 12C, depending upon the sensor model. Proper wiring and regulation are essential for reliable communication. Software libraries and drivers facilitate easier integration with programming languages like Python or C++. Some of the libraries uses programming languages like Python or C++ for easier integration. Setting up the development environment. Install necessary SDKs, drivers, and libraries specific to fingerprint sensor model. Choose an appropriate programming language such as Python for rapid development. Use some important and advanced programming languages for advanced development. Installing some libraries in order to fingerprint sensor model is essential. Prepare the hardware setup on a breadboard or a custom PCB for testing and deployment. Prepare some hardware setup. Some hardware setup has to be made to customize PCB for testing and their development. Basic workflow of fingerprint authentication program. How this fingerprint authentication program works. Enroll a fingerprint by capturing and storing the fingerprint template in the database. First, we have to take the fingerprint of the authorized person or unauthorized person and store these fingerprint patterns or this evidence in the database. Prompt the user to scan their fingerprint during login or registration. User User to scan, prompt the user to scan their fingerprint. So these fingerprint technologies are used to protect our device or provide some locks like locks. Instead of using passwords, we can use these fingerprint as a lock to our devices. by by this fingerprint patterns, we can log in or register any of the apps, and we can open any device. Match the scan fingerprint against a stored template to authenticate the user. First, we will create a fingerprint capture. First, we capture our own fingerprint and we'll store this in the database. In the next step, we will use for this login or registrations, and next matching should be done. If both the fingerprint patterns stored in the database and the fingerprint which are stored in the database and with our fingerprints, if both are matched, then lock will be open and the device gets unlocked. This is about working flow of fingerprint authentication program. Sample code snippet: Python for enrolling a fingerprint. Sample: some sample code for enrolling. How to some samples code by using the Python programming languages in order to enroll this fingerprint is: we have to use some libraries for serial communication and fingerprint processing. Initialize communication with fingerprint sensor and check connectivity. We have to use some libraries in order to maintain the communication and fingerprint processing. With the communication between us and the devices, we have to maintain some libraries. Initialize the communication: start first the communication with this fingerprint sensor and check the connectivity. firstly we have to Firstly we have to connect the system with we have to connect the system by logging with our fingerprints. Then then we maintain the communication with fingerprint and the sensor. Capture fingerprint image: capturing fingerprint image, convert it into the template and store it with a user id. After capturing of a fingerprint image, we have to convert this into the template, and we have to store this with a some user id. um, where In order to open our devices or lock patterns, we use this user id and our fingerprints. If both are matched, then the device will be open and we will authenticate the devices. Handling errors and exceptions: some errors may occur in this fingerprint biometric authentication, and those errors and their expectations are given below. Implement checks for sensor disconnection, failed captures, or mismatched template. Sometimes the connection may disconnect, or captures may be failed. When we try to capture the fingerprints, it may be failed, or any mismatch occurs between our data and between the database. Provide user feedback through LEDs, display screens, or audio signals. We have When the mismatch occurs, we have to give signal to the user through feedback, through on the screens, or any signals, any audio signals. Log errors for debugging and improve the system robustness over iterations. Log errors for debugging and improve system robustness. For repeatedly iterations, we can log error, debug the errors. Security consideration. Encrypt stored fingerprint templates to prevent the unauthorized access. Encrypt the fingerprint patterns are converted into templates in previous stage. Here now, in security consideration, we will encrypt this stored fingerprint template to prevent the unauthorized access. If we encrypt this fingerprint template, then the unauthorized person who are not authorized to the fingerprint are, cannot access the system. Use secure communication channels between sensor and processing units. Use the secure communication, some security or some using some passwords between the channel in our channels, between the communication channels between sensor and processing unit. Say the security should be maintained between the communication. Regularly update of firmware and software to patch the security vulnerabilities. That is, we have to regularly update our system. That is updating the antivirus and updating the overall system so that we can handle the vulnerabilities. That is, any data corruption occurs, we can handle by updating. Next, coming to the conclusion of the our topic is our topic, that is biometric authentication using fingerprints is integrating fingerprint sensor enhances security with biometric verification. By this topic, we can say that biometric verification is done by using the fingerprint sensors. Ongoing advancement includes multimodal biometrics and cloud-based managements. Some advancements are made in this category, that is model biometrics and cloud based management. Proper hardware setup and software implementations are critical for reliable biometric authentication. Proper We have to use properly hardware and software implementation for in order to get the reliable authentication process. This is what about biometric authentication. Thanking you.